In Folsom, Cordova, have they made any decisions on what the fall is going to look like yet?
No, they did send out a survey with 4 different options and asked us to disclose whether or not we were comfortable with going back and basically why.
And this was to the teachers, not to the parents?
Right.
Okay. What were the 4 options?
There's like a 50-50, sort of a AM PM sort of hybrid to cut the class size in half. There was like a 20% option where you would be in class 1 day a week with 20% of your kids, and the other 4 days would be online. Well, the other, I should say, 80% of your day would be online.
Okay.
So I don't know what that's going to look like in terms of a shop, obviously, because we had very limited space, you know, basically a single bay auto shop with a little bit more room.
Well, let's do this. People are starting to join. This is really good. It's good to see Tony on the line and Michael. Welcome, you two. So let's start off real fast. I was going to talk for just a moment, kind of tell you where we've come from and where we're going with these shop talk calls. And I want to turn the time over to Denise, have her, be our main presenter today. Hi, Karen. And so this is Steve Dicus talking, and we started these shop talk calls last November. And it was just the whole premise was to bring together or create a forum for CTE teachers to talk, share resources, ask questions, try to get help and things like that. And we were doing those on a monthly basis. And then fortunately, we kind of had this going already. And then when everything fell apart or got crazy in mid-March, we moved to doing things weekly. And for those of you that were on the calls back then, you'll remember we spent a lot of time chatting like we just were. And then we decided to put a little more structure to it, started having different people come and present different resources that, as everybody's trying to figure out how they're going to interact with their students and make equity happen for everybody. But I'm getting the feeling now, as I've listened to the calls and participated in about the last 11 weeks, that we kind of run our course. Most of us are either at the finish line or we can see the finish line for the current semester. And we're really looking forward to what we're going to be doing this summer and preparing for the fall. And so I invited Denise Bushnell from Sierra College, who's been teaching online courses, for 3 or 4 years now, Denise?
Oh, how about 15, 16 years?
That many? Oh my.
Yep. I started the first round of online classes at Sierra.
Excellent. So you're just the person we need, because as you can hear, a lot of us are going to have to move to the online environment in a more formal fashion. As I listen to everybody, it's kind of loosey-goosey this past, getting through these last 6 to 8 to 10 weeks of school. But I think it's going to be much more formal going forward. And someone like yourself, if you could just take a few minutes and tell us how you structure your class, how you make sure that it's really that student who's turning in the work, how they connect with you back and forth, just those types of things, and some of the tips and tricks that you've learned, things to avoid and things to definitely do when you're running your online class. So Denise, take it away, please.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of introduced themselves, but it looks like you all know each other. And
well, let's do that though first. So I'm Steve Dicus. I'm the moderator of this. And let's just go around real fast so Denise can hear who's in the room, because there's some people I'm sure you don't know.
For sure. So I'm Denise Bushnell, as Steve said. I see many of my colleagues on the call as well, so it's great seeing them again one more time. I'm a full-time faculty member at Sierra College in the information technology and business department, so I cross-teach, but will be 100% in business as of the fall. I'm also the dual enrollment coordinator for CTE courses and the chair of the current technical education committee. So I'm really honored to be a part of that and I'm also right now an online distance education liaison for faculty and also dual enrollment instructors. So I'm happy to share what I know. I will also though turn to my colleagues if they have anything they want to share as well, as they've kind of gone through this process. But I'm happy to give you my 10 cents worth of knowledge through these last 15 years.
Why don't you just launch right in and do it, and then when you're done, maybe we can just introduce ourselves, if that makes sense. But it sounds like you're
Yeah,
on
for sure.
go.
So again, I didn't do anything formal because I thought maybe the time might be better spent perhaps with some questions. I did bring up one of my courses if we wanted to take a look at that, but overall, a couple of things that I just wanted to share, and I'm sure I'm not stating anything that isn't pretty obvious, but there's a couple things that I've learned over the course of developing online courses. Is of course finding resources and being able to share those resources with students. Time management, which is absolutely critical. And one of the things that I think is for our students, other than technology, a big hurdle. They just perhaps don't realize that online courses probably take sometimes a lot more work. As well as faculty need to know that it's not just about throwing up a bunch of stuff in Canvas and walking away. So organization is critical. I think one of the mistakes that a lot of online folks as they're learning make is that their information as it's presented isn't logical and organized. Mine is done by week and then by topic. So I've worked to make it very easy to follow. A student just goes in for that week and it's all laid out for them, which I can certainly share. And then
You can share your screen, Denise, if you want.
Okay, I will do that then just quickly.
Check.
Hang on, let me just do these last couple things and then I'll do that.
Okay.
Communication, as you can imagine, is the piece that really tends to slip. It actually requires a lot more connection and communication. There's many different ways to communicate. For myself, I'm constantly emailing. I do Zoom office hours. I do extra little Zoom, like tutoring meetings. I have a lot of videos that I upload. I also, try to do a lot of announcements. So every so often I'm submitting announcements and then I copy them and submit them as emails. One of the things that I recommend, and again, I know a lot of the high schools are using different learning management systems, but for us, we use Canvas. And, Canvas has a lot of good tools to help with that. I set up chat rooms for students. You can break out students into different groups in Zoom as well. So there's a lot of tools that you can use depending on what you're trying to achieve. I know in CTE it's been a little bit more difficult because we do have those, and Roy is here and Michael and Tony, and they can kind of address that. You've got online labs and Jonathan as well, online labs that you're not going to do in an online, on ground labs that you're not going to do in an online environment. So how do you work around that? And they've come up with some pretty amazing things. So, that's another item to address. I also do a lot of, I do have deadlines. It's not squishy. Deadlines are deadlines. If you're out in the real world, you've got to meet deadlines. And they're very well established. And then, using personalized projects and a lot of group work. So that to me helps on a lot of different levels because they're communicating with each other. It's not just me in a vacuum submitting a lot of stuff and walking away. The group projects still allow them to work together and present. Those are just some of the things that I have found have been very effective. One of the things that we at Sierra, and as a community college have to be careful of is, student rights and also equity. So we have to be aware that we cannot force a student to attend a scheduled Zoom meeting. for equity reasons, for, you know, they might have a job, they may not have technology. So we can establish that we're going to be there from here to here and we're going to record it, and then let them watch it later. But we cannot, you know, force them to attend a class. So that's something to also keep in mind. I know, Steve, you had asked me a little bit before I share my screen, a little bit about, you know, how do you know it is the student? I don't know that anyone can really answer that. That is you know, that's a hard one. I mean, there's a certain amount of trust in online education. You know, I'm sure all of us have seen parents do their kids' homework for them. How do you know? How do you know the kid did the homework even in an on-ground class? So there is a certain level of trust. And, you know, for me in a community college environment, it's all about, look, this is your education, not mine. I've been there and done this. And, you know, you're the one that's learning. So I'm going to have to recognize at a certain point that, you know, this is your work. As far as like plagiarism or, you know, things like proctorio, where a student is taking a test and you know, somebody's watching them take it to show that it's them and they have to give their ID. I don't know how others feel, but I do sit on academic senate at Sierra, and there's a lot of issues with that. First of all, it's like Big Brother watching. Students don't want to be seen. They don't want people to see them online for many reasons. You know, they may have domestic violence issues. There could be lots of other things that could get involved in this. There's a lot of civil rights that come up. So I am not a big fan of that whole proctoring environment. I realize on ground that happens all the time, but I set up my projects and my course so that it's pretty much hard to cheat because they're very personalized projects. I'm not a big fan of pointing and clicking and just taking a multiple choice test, although you can do that in Canvas. And you can set it up so that no two people get the same questions. It alternates. And also you only give someone a certain amount of time to answer and then it's done. So there's a lot of tips and tricks as far as setting up online quizzes and tests. But I am not a fan of that necessarily. I'm much more a fan of projects. So whether it's through a discussion board or a group project or having a student go out and find something that they're interested in and reporting back on it, I do use Turnitin to run their written projects through Canvas to see if they're copying things word for word, but that has some issues in it too. Because if my questions have been asked before and they're out there, they could be viewed as a student copying when in fact they're really not. So again, everything has its pros and cons. I think it's up to the faculty member to sort of determine what they may or may not want to use. But I will, hopefully I can get this to work. Okay, here we go, cool. All right, so here we go. So I'm hoping everyone will get to see this. It might take a minute for you to see my Canvas shell, hopefully. Okay, here we go. It's coming. I can start to see it. There we go. So again, you know, and there's nothing here that I can't share. This is my Business 20, which is an intro to business. It's a general ed class. It's really any student should take this class because it teaches about all aspects of business, whether it's accounting, marketing, entrepreneurship, you know, stocks, whatever it might be. So I don't know your course management systems that you're using, but again, I have announcements set up so that I'm communicating with a student, you know, on a very, very continual basis, usually about once a week, if not more. explaining, and then I also have that sent as an email. I only communicate with my online students through Canvas. If they email me through my normal Sierra College email, I tell them they have to ask it in Canvas. That way it's all captured in one place. You know, again, my syllabus, this is posted here, so they can always go back and refer to it. The SLOs, you know, are there. There's all kinds of dates. There's the textbook, which I always provide free course material. I outline a lot of the links that we need to do as Sierra College faculty. I keep it pretty clean and easy. And then the way that I organize, so I give them, they have Google Drive if they need it, again, for equity, to share materials. We have a 24/7 tutoring center. We give them Office 365. So again, if they can't afford to get software, they have that. And then I set everything up in what's called modules. And if some of you are familiar with Canvas, I know there are faculty that use pages. I am not a fan of that whatsoever. Many of you may find that easy, but I don't. And my students get very confused. So I don't know if it's just business students and IT students, but to me, it's a lot of work and you can do it in an easier way. So in modules, I have, very first thing is the textbook. I have important events that, you know, they can be aware of. Obviously, we didn't have a whole lot of events this semester, so not much there, but usually that's pretty lengthy. So I promote a lot of information there, and then help and support. I do all kinds of, you know, student services, online learning, Google Docs, how to use it, our writing center, Netiquette for online courses, which I think is huge. And I do go over that. It is an important component that students learn how to talk to each other in an online environment. This is not texting. They need to be professional. You know, again, you know, resources. So communication in the class, 10 tips to being a successful online student, you know, how do online courses work, all the ADA materials, you know, blah, blah, blah. So of course, this is going to look very different for each of your subjects. I have rubrics, APA format for projects, and then each week. So weeks 1 and 2, there's the chapters. And then, you know, again, it's that organization and time frame that I have found that is really helpful to our students. I provide them with a checklist so they can make sure they don't miss anything. I give them, you know, the proverbial notes and outline. My lecture notes are there in case they want to download that. And that's for every chapter. So that took a long time to put together. And then they have videos to watch. They have discussions to answer. They have introductions. And so what I do to keep the discussions going is that I require them, when they're working in this environment, to not only answer the question or do the research, but they have to answer the responses and provide so it has to be substantive, additional information to their classmates. They can't just say, oh, I agree with you, because that doesn't count. You know, they have to offer something else or ask another question to get the dialogue continuing. And if they fail to do that, it's a deduction. So if you just answer your own, it's half credit. If you answer one student, then you get you get 10 extra points. And then if you do the whole thing, then it's full credit. And then they also have written assignments, you know, research that they have to go out and do. And then, you know, again, I'll just give you an example of like what that assignment might look like. So I provide a lot of information directly in the assignment. I also tell them what they need to do and how they need to do it. So they are never at a loss for what I expect. And then if they need clarification, they can email me. But it keeps it pretty simple. And then you can see that, you know, folks are responding to it. So I don't want to give away the finger, but there's the questions that they need to answer. And so it's pretty hard to cheat with these questions because they're interpretive. And so, they're very subjective, and that way I tend to get a feel for how students write. So I can tell when it's not them writing it, which honestly, I have to be really honest, and maybe I'm an idealist. In the years that I've been doing this, I maybe have had 2 cases of plagiarism, or somebody else that I feel has answered for them. And the only reason that I, saw it was pretty blatant because it was somebody with the same last name and the answers were absolutely identical. So it was either sisters, brothers, partners, spouses, something where they were in the same house and they were just copying each other. And that was years ago. Quite honestly, I've had very few examples of that, at least in my classes, because they are so subjective. So this isn't about just, pointing and clicking, and it has to be the right point and click. And I know that in mechatronics, very much the same way. Yes, there's, certain foundational skills, but, there's a lot of that personal touch that goes into, I think, a lot of our CT programs. I know Jonathan does the same thing. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I mean, you have the grades are here. Again, one of the differences between the high school and, the college is that, parents are not allowed to see the grades or talk to you about the grades for community college, where they can in high school. So these are only available to you and the student. That's just something we've had to work with our dual enrollment faculty on that's been kind of difficult to get across. So without boring you to tears with a lot of other stuff, that's sort of what I do in a nutshell. There's lots of resources and tools to incorporate video, and you can use all of those. There's ways I incorporate Zoom into all my classes, and then I send a link to everyone that if you couldn't be there for the tutoring session or what I went over, then you can watch this and then, ask questions. And I have, not in my business classes, but in my IT classes, I have past peers in all my classes, which are students who have taken the class and are in the class to act as a tutor for that class. And that has been an amazing resource. So again, just something else to keep in mind. Again, I don't know about how the high school handles something like that, but dual enrollment faculty are using that concept, I think, in some of our courses. So I will, does anyone have any, questions regarding just what I'm showing on my screen right now, because I can, get rid of that and we can just chat with questions if not.
I have one, Denise. This is Dicus.
Sure.
So you showed Netiquette, which I would agree, that's really important, and also 10 tips for being a successful online student. Is there a way that you'd be willing to share that with us?
Oh, sure. I can share any of this material. So I can download the links and send them to you, Steve, and you can send them out.
Okay.
I absolutely have no problem with that at all. And, I update them occasionally if things change once a semester. So I'm happy to share those links for sure.
I just see those just 2 critical things for students going forward. Perfect. Denise, this is
yeah, they're important. And I do go over them, with students. I make sure that they understand what that means. And I will tell them, if you submit something that's not professional, it's in my syllabus. If you submit something that's not professional, I'm not grading it. So they need to know that this is not about them talking or texting their friends or whatever. Texting is fine. It works in business too. I couldn't live without it, but in an environment like this, they need to be able to be much more professional in their communication skills.
So speaking of professional, is basically, this is Dicus again, is it really email is the preferred way of working with your students at the college level?
Yes, although I give a lot of additional information. So let me just, without giving away, when I grade, I don't just give a grade. So I'm giving incremental information and giving them feedback that is sometimes quite lengthy, to provide them with, incremental information and ways of thinking about things. So I don't just put in a grade and go, oh, good job, that kind of stuff. I'm giving them constant updates and information in everything I'm grading. So it can be in the grading process, because you can add comments. I do it through email, I do it through announcements, and I do it through Zoom sessions. So it's really a multi-pronged way of keeping them engaged. And when they're working in groups, I get access, so I can go in and kind of facilitate a little bit when I set the groups up, give them feedback, and then send them on their way. You have to be constantly engaging them as you would in the classroom. It's just a different platform, but you can't let that communication process go away, because if you do, you will lose them. They will disengage. And we have multiple ways of helping if we see a student start dropping off, to get them back, and sometimes it's an illness or they get overwhelmed. Again, in the high school, you're maybe seeing them a little more. So that may help, that you would have perhaps more direct contact. As you know, Sierra, for the most part, is going to be, again, for labs that have to be on ground. We'll have hybrid classes. Otherwise, we will be totally online in the fall. So that may differ from what the high schools are going to be doing. And so when we have dual enrollment teachers, that becomes an issue, because they have to go totally online for the course they're teaching for Sierra, and yet their high school class is on ground. So, there's a lot of interesting pieces, but communication, if I have to stress something, and again, I can ask my colleagues, but, to chip in, but to me, it's the engaging in the communication, just like in an on-ground class. And that is a lot of work. And I'm not gonna tell you that online is easy. It is not. I probably work 3 times as hard in an online class than I do in an on-ground.
A question, this is John Zay, Sacramento City College. Denise, you had mentioned that there may be issues with requiring students to attend, let's say, Zoom meetings.
Correct.
Even if
we have equity issues. So we can set up and say, we're going to be online, face-to-face Zoom, right? From, I'm making this up, 3:30 to 4:30 Monday and Wednesday.
Right.
But if we cannot ding a student if they don't attend.
What if it's been advertised as a synchronous class?
That's a different story. We can't do that. We've been basically told that that's not something we can do, especially in the fall. We can use components of it, but it is an online class.
So, but I mean, all yours are asynchronous then?
Yes, yes, with a other than the hybrids, which I'm a huge hybrid fan. I wish we did more hybrids. To me, that's the way education should be headed. But right now for fall, we are online with, if you do anything where there is some kind of a synchronous component, it can't be required. You can be there, they can attend, and then you can record it and send it out to those that can't attend. But it's an equity thing right now.
That's interesting, because in Los Rios, we have the choice of being asynchronous or synchronous.
Yeah.
Right. And like you, we're online, and in labs, they're letting us do face-to-face labs.
Yeah, and that we are as well. Again, mechatronics, welding, advanced manufacturing. I mean, there's really no way you're going to do online labs. I mean, I know that Roy and Mike and Tony have done an amazing job, and I'm sure, you know, others have done some incredible things as well, but you really do need to be on ground for those labs. So IT, not so much. You know, we can use NetLab and NetLabs and a lot of other things that will take the place. But yes, for Sierra, that is the ruling right now. Our academic senate has approved that, and that's how we're going to treat fall. I couldn't tell you, John, what they're going to do for spring.
Oh, nobody knows. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, but for the online, right now it's either totally online, and if you want to do any kind of Zooms or things like that, you can put them in your syllabus. You can put them as office hours, but you cannot command that a student attend, and you can't ding them for attendance.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Denise, we have a question, another question. Sorry to bust in. Were you done? Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to jump in here. Tony asked a question, and it has to do with Canvas versus email. What is the rationale for using Canvas only? I know I heard your rationale, but why not get the students used to using email, which is the typical business standard?
It is email. So there's a Canvas email, and they can have those emails downloaded to another email account if they don't want to use their Sierra College account. So at Sierra, we have an email. They have one email account, but it's within the learning modules in Canvas. So it's all, they log into Canvas and there's all the contact from me. They can also go to what's called My Sierra and email me, and it goes to my Outlook account, which I don't want students emailing me in Outlook because it gets lost, it gets mixed in. Sometimes they're not sending it from their Sierra College account. And so it gets into my junk folders. Whereas in Canvas, I know I will see it and I can answer it and it's all in one place. I also have a record of everything. So
Gotcha.
that's
So
why
it's still technically it's email. It's just that the email address that you're using is going to the Canvas platform.
Indeed.
Okay.
Yes, yes. No, it's still email for sure. And I totally agree with you that, you know, in business, email is the true communication piece now.
Format, yes.
It's, yeah, format. It's just that it's a way to consolidate so that I don't have students emailing me and I miss it. I know that when it is in Canvas, it's Canvas related and it's my students. And I can separate it from all my other Sierra College work.
Hey, Denise, on that, isn't it an accreditation as well? Because we need to establish some percentage of communication with the students?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Roy. And yes, for accreditation, and Roy's absolutely right, we have to have a certain amount of communication. And that was one of the issues that had been brought up in the past, that we weren't doing it enough. We have, sadly had online courses where, you know, a faculty member just uploads a bunch of stuff and then basically disappears. They don't communicate, they post a grade with no responses. And so email is definitely a way to keep that going. And then also announcements. I always mirror mine, so whatever I put in an announcement also gets sent as an email, just in case students aren't checking both. But you're absolutely right, and that's a huge issue, and it is an accreditation issue. So this is not a correspondence course, which is what they're afraid of. This is an engaged with dialogue. It's just that it's in a different format and platform. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Roy. You're absolutely right.
Sure.
Other questions for Denise? Other things we can discuss?
Anyone have anything else to share? Because I know, this is an ongoing learning process. We're all learning, and for me, it's taken it's hit or miss sometimes. But I think if you have established deadlines and you have that organization and that contact, back, and I get students that say, wow, I can't believe you actually like answered me the same hour, let alone the same day. That's why I like everything in Canvas, because then I don't miss anything. But they are very hungry, as this past spring has taught us. They're hungry for that connection. They're really hungry for it. As much as you think they're technology involved, they want that human component and to know someone's out there helping them.
So Denise, John Zay again.
Yeah, John.
So ADA issues, do you do closed caption and?
Yes. Yes, in fact, we actually offer, and in fact, I'm going to be attending it in June just to get an update. We have a whole month-long professional development course that's taught through our distance education department on just making things ADA compliant, because that's another issue that in the past we have had not so good grades on, but we've become really good at it. So yes, you have to really be aware of that, and it is a training. Honestly, like I said, I've been doing this for 15 years, and there are things that I learned that I went, really? So you're right, closed caption, just the way your documents are worded, you know, what you're providing, and like I say, it's a month-long course on how to stay ADA compliant. So if Sac City, right, John?
Yes.
If Sac City, I'm not sure, you know, you may want to talk to your distance ed or professional development group, but I highly recommend that, you know, you take something if it's an area that you want to just keep updated on. And, you know, it was an area for me that I really needed to get my head around again, because I'd been away from it, and it keeps changing, and there's new tools and new ideas. And so that's what I'll be doing the month of June is going over that. Has anyone, Roy, have you been through that yet, the ADA one?
Not the ADA one. I'm in just the online training right now, the
Okay.
5-week class. But I just wanted to speak on to the developing the ADA compliant documents as you create them, instead of going back through and trying to modify everything to meet the requirements. That's a nightmare. So I'm going to take that training as soon as possible, and I'd recommend anyone do that, because going through stacks of, or actually files of old documents and trying to update alternate texts and just find all the hiccups and glitches is a nightmare.
It's a lot of work, and I have to say that's a great comment, because I actually went through and did that a couple of years ago, and I literally thought I was going to go like screaming into the parking lot. It was a nightmare, but I had to do it in order to, you know, get this thing approved. And now I'm, you know, and I learned a lot, but oh my goodness, it was so stressful. So Roy's absolutely right. If you can do it at the beginning, then you're 6 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I'm gonna undo my screen here in case you all have something else to share. But you know, if there's anything else that I can provide or discuss or share, I am, you know, more than happy. I'll send those links out to Steve for him to send out. If there's anything else that, you know, someone would like, I'm happy to share whatever I have.
Denise,
it's always different. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So yeah, so that's I'm always here to share information. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's community of practice. So nothing here proprietary.
Denise, this is Dykus. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing and being open with what you've got and being willing to share the resources and the experience you have in this arena. This is new for many of us.
I'm sure. And I think the one thing to keep in mind is that it don't get overwhelmed, you know, do it in chunks, you know, have a flow. So I'm all about, spent many years in advertising and marketing. So I'm all about like flow charts and storyboarding, but you just lay it out and then just do your sections. And the way I try to design things is I just put myself in, in the viewpoint of the student and go, okay, if I were a student coming into this class, how would I want it to look? And, then build it from there. But I'm all about modules, and I'm all about weekly modules with a lot of detail, and being very explicit so that there's no confusion. I think that helps a lot because you don't always have the ability to be face-to-face and speaking. So that's the key, that organization and the communication. And don't try to build the whole thing at one time, build it in baby steps. Now you only have to be 1 week or one module ahead of your students, really. And trust me, I have done that. I've had to take on a class at the last minute and go, oh, holy crap, here we go. And I built, 2 modules, and it got them through the first 2.5 when I just kept building module and module after that, and then got a little bit of a breather and finished up the class. So it can be done. You just don't want to get overwhelmed. And I think that did happen to a lot of folks when they, because they were on ground faculty, that they went, well, it's so different, but it really isn't. It's just the way of organizing the information that's different, and the technology, which, for me and for most CTE folks is not the biggest issue.
No.
I'm a pretty quick learner, and I think most CTE folks are.
Denise, I had a question about your deadlines that you set for your students, and so they know the professional environment that they're in, but also how does that fit with the equity? And a lot of them don't have access to the scanners, and I've tried giving my students some different options, but it seemed like there was, always a few that just couldn't use the tools or didn't have access to it. How do you work that in, or how do you provide it so you're not violating an equity issue there?
And that's a great question again, Roy. So I do have deadlines. If there's a reason, and especially this semester, I will get those folks that say my work schedule's changed, or I don't have childcare, whatever it might be. And then I'll work with them and say, okay, I can't, maybe I can't reopen the link, or maybe I reopen the link for everybody, because again, with Canvas, you can't reopen the link for one student. It's for everybody or nobody. But I have had on occasion go, okay, look, I'm going to, again, you have to have a certain amount of trust. Are you,
Sure.
Is this the truth? Well, I'm going to have to take you at your word. If you need a couple extra days, then upload it to an email attachment, and I will, I'll look at it. And I will, I'll grade it. So again, you're always opening yourself up to somebody playing the system, but quite honestly, for me personally, I have found the more that I'm open and trust folks and say, okay, look, I honor that you're having a problem. I'm going to, I'll give you 2 extra days. And if you can't make that, then we need to talk about maybe some other help. But if you can get it in this time frame, I'll accept it, but I can't open the link back up. What I do in a lot of my IT classes that are project-based is that I have an initial deadline that I have students or groups submit, and then I review it, and I give them a second deadline to take my feedback, revise it, and resubmit it.
Very cool.
And that's worked beautifully with, in IT. So I'm not sure how that might fit with other disciplines, but for IT, it's been great because they do their project, and I'm just making this up, an Excel project or an Access project or whatever. And they submit it. I tell them, well, this worked, this didn't, go back and fix this. Then they go back and they make those changes and redo it, and then resubmit it by a second deadline. So I've had folks that on that first project, they just can't make the deadline. They always have that second deadline to submit their original. They just won't get the feedback. And that seems to work. Again.
It's a procrastinator special.
Yeah. And hey, we've all been there, right?
Cool, thanks.
And Tony, I'm sorry, I know Tony's typing. And he was asking about quizzes, to open something up for 1 or 2 students, being able to copy the quiz and list only those students, put a new date on it. Honestly, Tony, I don't know how to answer that because I've never done that. I don't give a lot of quizzes that way. So I don't know the answer to that. I could see that creating some problems. You may create another quiz for certain students, but I think that's just a night. For me personally, that would be a nightmare.
That might be a grading nightmare, but just copy,
Yeah.
once they complete it, copy it back over to the original one. I think.
Right,
I hear
right.
what you're
So yeah, that one I honestly have never done because I don't do quizzes that way very much. But there are ways. But that just sounds like to me, that just, I'm getting a headache just thinking about what that could cause.
saying. All right.
Good question though.
Well, so we're having some great discussion right now. I'm thinking, this is just Dicus talking again. I'm not sure we need to be holding these right now on a weekly basis going forward. What do you think about holding one in mid-June, having everybody check in and see where they're at? Or do you want to go to every other week, or do you want to keep doing them weekly?
Well, mid-June is fine, but either way, it's not like we're all running to the Bahamas shortly. So I'm good with whatever you decide, Steve.
Well, I just get, thanks, John. I get the sense and the feeling that a lot of you are going to be spending your spare time during the summer break preparing for the fall.
Yeah.
You can tell me if I'm crazy or not, but the more teachers I talk to, and hopefully you're going to be compensated for that. And I hope your districts provide you resources to help you on certain things where you need a little extra training and help with.
I think you're absolutely right, Steve.
I'd be in favor of coming together again in June to see where we're at mid-June.
So just looking at your calendars, is there a day of the week or a time of the day, or is this kind of keep it on Tuesdays, late afternoon like this? Yeah, I'm seeing thumbs up. So why don't I leave it at that, and then we'll go from there. Again, as you know, we're always recording these, and so they're available for you to listen to, as you're working out on the workout machine or whatever. So we'll do that. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share with the group or throw out there to discuss something that you need currently or foresee coming up in the near future that you'd like to get some assistance with or help with?
What kind of, Steve?
Well,
I just
what
need.
does that mean, John?
I think Ian was about to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I had a question. I'm trying to purchase the new Tormach bandsaw, the automated bandsaw. Does anyone have any experience with that machine, or have they used it in their shop? I see some wagging heads. No. Nothing local.
Who was it that was asking about Tormach last week? Was that Pete? He might, but I don't think he does. I think he has a different Tormach machine.
Right. Well, I have a
And a
couple of
Tormach
Tormach machines. This one's just an automated bandsaw.
Right.
So for cutting coupons and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
just so much easier than waiting to see what happens when you let a student loose for half an hour. Usually it works out okay, but sometimes you're just like, what happened? It's the same number every time. Like, what happened? But anyway, I was just fishing to see if anybody has pros, cons, or if I could come see it in action. I mean, videos are great, but before I, plunk down, I think they're offering a package now for like $5,000. I want to see what it actually does in person.
And this is Steve from Autodesk. Is there any model you are particularly looking at?
Right now, they only have one automated bandsaw with Tormach.
Okay, I can check with the educators and see if they have any feedback to share on this one.
Oh, that'd be fantastic, because I've asked around a little bit in a couple of different groups, and it's something relatively new. And I've checked through different bulletin boards, and people have their love-hate relationship with different brands, and I'd just rather go see it myself. I'd
Yeah.
wear a mask.
You said it's a Tormac advanced automatic saw?
It's a bandsaw. B as in boy, bandsaw.
Okay. Okay, I'll check on that and then I'll get back to you. I think we probably connected on email. Do I have your email address?
I'll just put it in the chat for you. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, I know we have customers, they used Tormac, so I can check with them. Yes.
And this is Dicus. I will send this out tomorrow, just
Okay.
to my list and see if anybody has the term.
Okay.
So, and
Yeah, sounds good.
That's
to
great.
share with you too. So that's what this resource is supposed to be for, is connecting people.
Everybody in background.
Yep.
Oh, you're in the mountains. Yeah, that's exactly what this is for. And I was, just ask, right?
That's it.
Cool.
Any other thoughts, comments? We've got discussions when we open up. Dee, it sounds like you got something to say.
Yeah, I have some resources I want to share. So I know summer is a downtime for a lot of educators, but we also recognize that we also heard from some educators, they also want to use the time to network and then upskill. So Autodesk actually hosting an Autodesk HTech conference end of July 29th. And then in the summer, we are also planning a weekly session to have educators to share their projects, what they're working on, their best practices. So it's kind of similar to what you guys having here, but it's a little bit more project based and then a little bit more specific on their project. And then it's not going to be only for the project who use Fusion, but it's more for educators with a like mind to share their experience.
When did these start?
The first session will be the June 5th. And then we're planning to run it on a weekly basis for maybe around 2 months.
Is there a way you could send me the link?
Yeah, I can send the link to you and Jeff and Karen. And I just want to give a heads up. That's the events we're planning for the summer. And then we also Autodesk University is moving to online, and we are calling for proposals. I'd like to also see some of you maybe make a session, like a teaching session at AU, and then to reach more educators. That'll be nice too.
And do you have a flyer for the HTech at the end of July?
Yes, I'll send all of that to you. I just wanted to give a heads up to all of you here.
Okay. No, thank you for sharing that. This is valuable information.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody else like to share something? This is great stuff. I used to hate standing in front of a room with dead air like this.
Getting pretty normal now. Thanks for putting this together, Steve.
Well, you're welcome. Well, enjoy the heat that's coming.
Yeah, you bet.
And I'll send out something probably in a week or two about the next shop talk, and we'll make some good things happen. Let's keep communicating. Let's work together this summer and support each other.
I'll be there.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for letting me take up your time for about 40 minutes. I really appreciate this this chance to just share, and I'm happy to come back anytime and give updates if you ever need it.
Excellent, Denise. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for your wisdom.
Thanks, Denise.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jeff. See you later.
All right. I'm going to go graduate. Dun, 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 dun.